Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about, what is it again? NSX ALB Balancer Operation Workshop. Give me a minute. Oh, I forgot. It's about events and alerts. In this video, we'll be discussing the following: events, config auto trail, alerts, alert actions, and alert configuration. Events. Event overview. Pretty much any event, any events that occurred, any changes that occur in the system, details, converging changes, deletions, if a virtual service pool is down, if a pool server is down, if a service engine got updated, rebooted, they're down. Any type of action that occurs within the controller gets registered as an event. You can go to either the events tab or a specific object to look at the events of that specific object, or you can go to all events within the operations menu, which will give you the full information of all the events that happen across the whole installation. And you can also move to what is considered the config auto trail. In the config auto trail is mainly regarding login activity and configuration changes that occur in the infrastructure. Like I mentioned, sample use cases, controller down events are also there as well. Virtual services down, pool server down. We're going to show you some examples of these on the slide, so you have an idea how you can take advantage of this type of events. Controller outage. In this case, this is a good example when a controller node, if you have a full cluster, gets shut down. And you can clearly see the time of day, when it happened, what controller node was affected. Everything is in the details of the event. Virtual service down event, like I mentioned, will also register in the same manner. If you hit the plus sign on the event, it will actually provide you even more detail that what VIF was affected, who reported it, what any other items were affected by the virtual service being down. Why the virtual service is actually shut down. Was it because the push service is unavailable? Maybe the hub monitor is actually reflected the push server down, hence took the virtual service down. And like I mentioned also, you can either go to all events under the operation menu, or you can go to the object itself, and each object, virtual service, pool, and service engine will have its own event tab that in which you can highlight and you can see specific events related to that object. As an example I mentioned, in this case, we're looking at events that the virtual service was down because there was an error on the SSO configuration. And also here, an events detail showing an event that the virtual server went down because the pool became unavailable. As same goes as a virtual service, you also have events for the pool server itself. Again, either go to all events or you look at the object itself. Now, at that point, it's up to preference. Now, I actually prefer, if you know specifically what object is the one that got impacted, I usually will drill down first events there first to see. And if I don't find any indicators in there, then I'll switch to all events to get a better picture of what happened during that time. And config auto trail is a little bit more limited, but in a good way. Pretty much, config auto trail is a filter view of login activity and configuration changes. In other words, if you want to track who logged in to the system what time, you could go here. You don't have to go to all events and drill down and look between all, because we do collect a lot of data. If you want to go more specific, you can go to the config auto trail. Do you want to know if somebody deleted a configuration? Or what time did that occur? Who did that change? You can go to the config auto trail. Who added a configuration? Who created a new configuration? Everything, all that related to configuration changes and authentication will be in this view. Again, you still see the same events in all events. tab. But to be honest, considering all the data we collect, it will be easier for you to start in config auditor if you're looking to track user activity and any changes that were done in the system. You can either highlight the events and it will highlight who logged in, at what time, and actually the IP address of the current machine that we're using. Correction was created or deleted. What changed? What's the difference? And even in configuration update, let's say you made a modification, it's going to highlight what was the change, what was the value of those fields on configuration before, and what changed. Did you remove a configuration? Did you add a configuration? You can really easily see indicators of that to easily highlight what was changed, or in any case you need to roll back. Now let's talk a little bit about alerts. Alerts overview. Pretty much, alerts is the same concept of an alert everywhere. It's a way to notify you if something broke, or something got updated, if something was turned off, if something was disabled. Any event that AVI registers, you can create an alert based on that. We actually have a very good default settings in alerts that a lot of customers and users don't even have the need to touch. But I mean, we do have users that prefer to customize what we have or add their own. Maybe because what I consider a high event or high priority alert, maybe for you is a low priority. If I consider a pull down event as in not dangerous, maybe you do, because maybe that pull down event is to a high priority application in which will impact your traffic and it will cost you money. And maybe you don't want to get fired. So it's very important to know that any event that AVI registers, you can create an alert based on that. Now, this is very important to know because you can be very flexible what kind of actions you want to do when you have this type of alerts. The alerts can be based on virtual services, pools, and service engine. I already mentioned that. To see the alerts, you will go on the same operation menu on the alerts tab, and you're going to see all the alerts in there. You may see alerts one day and not the next, because most of the default configuration of the alerts are set to expire in 24 hours. This can be changed. You can go to each another modifier or create your own, but by default, most of the alerts are already configured with that value. So if you have a high alert on Monday, maybe you won't see it anymore on Tuesday. Like I mentioned, ways to configure an alert. You can be either based on events, but also you can configure based on a metric, meaning if CPU is high, if memory usage is high, if this is almost to get full, any of those metrics, if packet numbers are increased, any type of that kind of metrics, you can create based on alert and an alert based on that. Now, it's most common to create events if possible, but we do have the configuration capacity if you need to go further and create more metric-oriented alerts. You create that alert configuration. Here you classify them as when do we consider that should be an alert, how to trigger the alert, how many instances of the event would you make sense that could be alert, at what percentage the CPU you want the alert to get triggered. Then you have an alert action. Alert action, this is where you classify how you want to classify the alert. You want it to be high, you want it to be low, you want it to be medium. Do you want it to send an email? Do you want it to send an email in your syslog server? Do you want to create an MP event based on that? Do you want to create, you can even make it to create a control script. A control script is actually a Python script that you can actually create on your own of an action you want AVI to do. Do you want AVI to execute a script in which maybe will create an update on a server on infrastructure, or do some type of action or an automated action that you need? That's what control script is for, and very useful for those very advanced alert maneuvers that you want to do. I mentioned syslog. For syslog configuration, of course, you just select your syslog server, the port we're going to communicate to. If you want to set up more than one, that's how simple it is. For email, you set up the email address, and if you want any other address in CC, keep in mind that for email notification, it's very important that in the controller configuration, you do have SMTP settings enabled, because that's what AVI, the controller, is going to use to be able to send notification. I mean, AVI, NSX ALB don't have, it's not that smart yet, right? It won't, without configuration of the email server, it won't know where to send an email. SNMP traps. And to access all the alerts actions, of course, you go on the same tab, operations, go alerts, and then there you're going to alert actions. Again, you can change the classification, what kind of actions you can do, and any other any customization. It all depends on your needs, on your alerts. Some alerts may not need to send notification. Maybe it's false positive, or maybe they're related to configuration changes that you're already aware of. Some alerts may be high priority that you may need to send an email, process log, process SNMP, even process control script. To configure the action, you set out a name, the alert level, and then you can decide which type of notification. If you leave it empty, then the only thing you're going to get is an alert in the controller. All the events and configurations are listed in a specific tab where you can see like a higher overview what is configured. Like I said, we're going to have many alerts already by default configured, which are very useful. But keep in mind, you're not tied to only those. You can either customize them or you can create your own. You can make them so they will configure based on all instances or a specific pool server or virtual service or SE. Again, it's at that point, it's up to you how flexible you want to be. Now that we're finished with the slides, I'm going to show you for my controller side just to get more details how you can configure these in case there's some other or more questions involved. Okay. Oh, wrong page. Sorry. There we go. Whew. Okay, so this is my controller. So let's go to operations and let's discuss first with events. If we go to events, like I mentioned, you have the option to go to all events. In what you have, in this case, I see a lot of failures with my backup schedule, and it looks like things I have to fix. When we have a schedule to create backups of the controller, I can actually go to event analytics to filter what type of events or what related object, the type of event or specific modules of the event. Keep in mind, and you can click any of these to filter. For example, if I want to filter against user login, I can go here and I'm only going to see events related to user login. And you can also control how past time you can access the information. Do you want the events to be from 50 minutes ago, or past month, or from the past year? And the same goes for config auditor. Same tools, same search. Big difference is you're only going to get configurations here, create, delete, and update, and login activity. There's some internal events that they're hidden because they may provide repeated information, or they may be more like advanced debugging events. You can always enable them if you hit the checkbox, and you may get those diesel events. So you may see, depending on the event, you may not see much difference, but if you're actually troubleshooting a scenario, an issue, it's very important to enable this in case you're looking for a type of event that is actually considered internal, and that's why you might not be able to find it. This same approach works on config auditor. It has its own, it uses the same method, right? There's internal events type that you can actually monitor as well. Alerts. In alerts, we have our view of what alerts have to have. Of course, no alerts have triggered in my past 24 hours. All my alerts are configured for 24 hours to be expired. So this is empty. Now, the view that you see now are default alerts configured or ready to go when you install the controller. You can modify these, delete them, but definitely I recommend don't delete them, leave them. You reuse them because they're very important alerts to use. Configure them as needed. If you don't have to, recommendation is leave this as is, maybe add more actions if you think the alerts are important, and add your own. Another action, this is where you configure the different type of actions you want to take. Maybe you want an alert to use an action to set it to high and send an email, but maybe you need another action that only wanted to set it to high with no email. So you can be very flexible how many actions do you want. You can only have an action per alert. Just keep that in mind. But it's that flexible. So to configure an alert, so first we're going to go to alert config, create, and I can say, for example, pull down event. I want to turn it on. The total means I can modify total alert. In this case, the default is 600. So let's say I'm going to create an event that a pull server went down. I want an alert. But what happens if that event happened, a pull went down, but right there, a second later, another pull down event happens again. Now, if a second event of pull down again occurs, and less than 600 seconds has passed, that second instance of the event will not trigger an alert. Now, if that second event happens after the 600 seconds, that will trigger a new alert. If you don't want throttle, you just set it to 0. If you want to be the source to be an event, in this case a pull down event, or a metric. Do you want it to be if the CPU went high, or if there's so many packets transfer, etc. You can actually, if you want, you can easily view how many metrics you have available. If you select metrics and you go to the drop down menu, you're gonna see the many options you have for metrics that you can create an alert from. But in this case, we're gonna create an event. I want it to be for any pull server that one goes down. So in this case, I'm gonna do pull, and I'm gonna make sure, instead of specifying the pull, I wanna make sure all instances is there, which you just leave it empty. That means doesn't matter, any pull that goes down, it will trigger an alert. Number of occurrences that have to happen to trigger an alert. Do you want this to happen the first time the event happens, or at the second time the event happens, or the third time the event happens? You have that option. By default is 1 for obvious reasons, right? The real timer rolling window meaning a specific timer that you set that it will do a check against that alert every 300 seconds. By default, it's real time, so Avi will detect what generate the alert the quickest way possible as soon as when the event gets triggered. And by default, this is what it's already saying in real time. Now for the events, I can say, let's look for server down. Here we go, server down. Now, let's say, but what happens if I do server down, but if a user disables the server, would that be considered server down? Since maybe I don't know, let's add an event. We can also add an or condition to set, in case the server is down, or a server is disabled to trigger the alert. And from there, I can select the actions. Now, I don't want to use anything that was already pre-configured, so I can show you the screen. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to hit the create button that is down here. I'm going to say pull. I almost wrote the wrong word. Pull server down action. I'm going to set it to be high. And in this case, I wanted to create an email. So let's create an email notification. So email action, just put whatever name there. Let's do one. Okay, we save. We save again. After this, let's see if I'm not forgetting anything. Let's see. I am forgetting something, am I? Oh. I said try to 0. It has to be that. No, it's not that. Okay, let's just a quick double check to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. There you go. Sometimes the simplest thing you miss. Server down, event details. There you go. Sorry about that. Hit save, and you have your pull event. Okay. So now we have those details. Let's go to our site. So based on what I showed you, this is either we collect all the event information. This is very important for debugging purposes, of course. Don't be afraid of having any alert configuration that you need, right? You can go as simple to only notify AVI, NSX ALB, or you can configure it so it will create an email notification, or it can execute a control script that will make some changes in your infrastructure based on what occurred. Now, the alerts could be positive alerts for related to changes, if something was updated, but also negatives, right? If something went down. Just keep it in mind, it's all the flexibility you can do with these alerts. Now, if you want to go further and practice this type of information, maybe get an idea how the alert looks like, configure some alerts and see how they react, feel free to access the HRA lab. I'll put the slide again on screen and the link with the questions that you can use. It gives you all the resources that you need so you can have a very big picture how to use AVI, NSX ALB, and also get you more familiar with the product. And that was it, everybody. Thank you for joining. Hope you find the information useful, and I'm gonna log off because I still have a headache. Have a good day.